Have you ever wondered why the same type of people keep appearing in your life? Why the kinder and more forgiving you are, the more you seem to be taken advantage of, disrespected, or hurt? You might have thought you're just unlucky, that you haven't met the right person yet. But the truth is far harsher. You're not accidentally attracting toxic people. You're sending out signals that invite them. And until you recognize this, you'll remain trapped in an endless cycle of hurt, forgiveness, hope, and disappointment. It's not your fault. But if you don't take responsibility for it, no one can save you from it. Toxic people don't choose you because you're weak. They choose you because you're strong, but unprotected. They choose you because you have a light they want to claim. And if you don't know how to protect yourself with a resilient inner strength, they'll enter your life, break your confidence, and make you believe you need them to survive. You don't need to explain yourself to them, try to make them understand, or change who you are to fit their toxicity. What you need is to look within and ask a critical question. What am I allowing to repeat in my life? In this video, I'll walk you through each layer of why you unconsciously attract people who cause you pain and disappointment. But we won't stop there. We'll dive deeper to find ways to decisively break this cycle with intention. No blame, no defensiveness, just an inner shift that will transform what you attract from the world around you. Each part of this video will not only help you recognize these patterns, but also equip you with practical tools to take back control, set boundaries, and start a new chapter, where you're no longer a victim of toxicity, but the creator of your own safe space. If you've ever felt like you always attract negative people, if you've sacrificed your kindness for stability, if you've been manipulated while simply wanting to be loved, this is the video you need to watch. Stay until the end, because each section will lay the foundation for rebuilding your psychological strength. Before we begin this journey of change, don't forget to like this video to support this content, comment to share your experiences, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on future videos about elevating your self-worth. Number 1, unhealed wounds attract familiar pain. Here's an uncomfortable truth everyone needs to know. We don't attract what we want, but what we're still entangled with. You might say you want a healthy relationship, someone who respects you, a peaceful life. But if you carry unhealed wounds, abandonment, disrespect, betrayal, those wounds speak for you. They emit a unique energy, an invisible frequency that toxic people can sense and approach quickly. They don't need you to say anything. Your presence, full of neediness, craving validation, is enough for them to see an opportunity to manipulate you. And so you repeat the old cycle, giving too much, receiving pain, and wondering why this keeps happening. Unhealed wounds don't just hurt you, they confuse you. They make you mistake familiarity for safety, even when it's harmful. If you grew up in an environment where love had to be earned, where care came with conditions, you'll unconsciously seek that feeling in adult relationships. Not because you don't know you deserve better, but because the wounded part of you feels at home with what's familiar. You think you're choosing someone new, but you're actually choosing your past, just with a different face. The harsh reality is, no matter how intelligent, rational, or strong you are, if you don't look within to heal, you'll continue to be driven by those unhealed wounds. You'll keep forgiving what shouldn't be forgiven, trying to fix others the way you once tried to fix your parents in vain. You'll feel drawn to people who can't love you right, not because you lack value, but because the wounded part of you is trying to complete an unfinished story. The truth is, if you've experienced deep trauma, you're more likely to be attracted to people who make you feel you must prove your worth. That's why you're not interested in kind people who easily accept and love you. The wounded part of you doesn't believe love can come without a fight. You've been programmed to think love requires conditions, struggle, effort, and toxic people, whether unconsciously or deliberately, know this and exploit it. The key is to recognize yourself, not to blame, but to take control. When you start observing yourself honestly, you'll see the recurring patterns, the type of people you're drawn to, the behaviors that move you, how you react when you feel ignored or unacknowledged. These aren't random, they're clear signs your wounds are speaking. The more aware you become, the more you can change those old behavioral patterns and stop being led by unconscious wounds. Healing doesn't start with others. It starts with stopping the search for validation from places that can never give it to you. You must stop trying to make others understand, empathize, or change, and shift your focus to yourself. Ask, what am I trying to prove? What am I unconsciously repeating? Who first made me feel I wasn't enough? When you trace it back to the root, to childhood, to the first memory of feeling hurt, you'll see that many of your current choices aren't rational, but driven by a need to heal an old pain. Attracting toxic people isn't a verdict on your worth. It's a natural consequence of not yet knowing how to care for the vulnerable parts of yourself. But when you begin the healing journey, the world around you starts to change. You no longer feel drawn to people who make you doubt yourself. You no longer feel compelled to save lost souls, and you no longer accept fleeting love just to avoid loneliness. You learn to become your own safe haven. And when you do, you stop emitting the signal of, I'm easy to manipulate, and start radiating, I am in control and don't need saving. The lesson isn't to be wary of everyone. It's to be wary of the unhealed wounds within you, because those are the real doors toxic people walk through. The more honest you are with yourself, the less you'll be fooled by sweet words. The more you heal, the less you'll be hurt by cold or disrespectful behavior. Because you know your worth doesn't come from others' acceptance, but from the safety you build within. If you're on this journey, know you're not alone. Every like and share of this video not only supports valuable content, but also sends a signal to the universe. I'm ready to change. Leave a comment below sharing your experiences with toxic relationships. And don't forget to subscribe to continue this journey of healing, growth, and freedom together. Number 2, low standards keep the door open. Here's a bitter truth worth facing. You can't attract quality relationships if you don't set quality standards for yourself. It's not that good people don't exist. It's that when you don't set clear boundaries for how you're treated, you're essentially leaving the door wide open for anyone to walk in. Even those with no intention of bringing good. And often those people walk in first because they can sense your leniency, your lack of confidence, the voids within you, things they can exploit. Be honest. How many times have you stayed in a relationship despite knowing it was unhealthy? How many times have you ignored red flags because you feared losing the little attention you got? How many times have you told yourself, maybe they'll change, just because you dreaded the emptiness of being alone? Your lack of clear standards makes you a magnet for people incapable of loving you right. This doesn't reflect your worth. It reflects how much you're allowing yourself to be treated this way. Standards aren't just a checklist for an ideal partner. Standards are how you act when disrespected, how you respond when someone breaks their word, how you walk away when you're not valued. Many think high standards mean demanding too much, but in reality, high standards aren't arrogance. They're self-respect. When you set clear standards, you're telling the world, I know what I deserve, and I'm not willing to accept less. The scary part is, when you don't set standards, you let others decide what you're worth. And manipulators, controllers, and selfish people always try to diminish you to make you easier to control. They'll praise you unrealistically to make you feel special, then slowly chip away at your boundaries. They'll justify their bad behavior, and if you lack clear standards, you'll start doubting yourself instead of questioning them. Don't confuse kindness with blind trust. Don't think giving everything is unconditional love. Because love without boundaries becomes sacrifice, and unconscious sacrifice turns into self-destruction. When you lack standards, you not only open the door to toxic people, but also push away the kind ones, because you won't recognize them. You'll think they're boring, too nice, lacking drama, and so you return to the familiar cycle, choosing the wrong people, suffering, and repeating. Setting standards isn't a declaration to others. It's a commitment to yourself, that you won't stay where you're made to doubt your worth, that you won't let anyone manipulate you with crumbs of affection, that you'd rather choose solitude than a relationship that breaks you day by day. That's when you realize a drama-free peace is 1,000 times better than a turbulent love with no destination. Many don't dare set high standards because they fear being left alone. But the truth is, you're never alone when you have yourself. and you're never truly loved if what you receive is compromise and endurance. Standards aren't for judging others. They're for filtering out who aligns with your journey of healing and growth. When you raise your standards, those who don't belong will naturally leave. That's not loss, it's liberation. More importantly, standards aren't just a list on paper. They must be shown through actions. You need to learn to say no without guilt, to stop investing emotions in those who don't reciprocate, to walk away instead of trying to save a sinking relationship, to trust your instincts instead of making excuses for others, and above all, to master the void, where you have no one but don't lose yourself. Once you establish this, you'll realize good people aren't rare. They just can't get close when you keep the door open to the bad. And when you truly believe you deserve better, you won't settle for scraps. You'll wait, in peace, in strength, until someone steps in and sees your true worth without you needing to prove it. If you've ever been lenient because of your wounds, don't blame yourself. See it as a sign to start anew. Begin with a simple but powerful question. Are my standards reflecting my true worth? If the answer is no, this is your chance to rewrite your life script, not to please anyone, but to protect your peace and dignity within. If this message touches your heart, help spread it by liking this video, sharing it with those who need to wake up, and commenting below. I'm ready to raise my standards. Don't forget to subscribe to catch the next part, where we'll uncover one of the toughest truths yet. Number 3, people treat you how you let them. If there's one thing you must engrave in your mind for any relationship, romantic, familial, friendly, or professional, it's this. People can only treat you to the extent you allow them. No one can hurt you repeatedly if you don't stay there. No one can disrespect you if you don't stay silent and accept it. And no one can control you if you don't hand them the keys to your power. This truth may sting, but it's also the gateway to freedom. Because if you're the one allowing it, you're also the one who can end it. If you're the one letting bad things continue, you're also the one who can stand up, set boundaries, and walk away. The problem is, we often don't see this power because we're trapped in the belief that we must endure, must keep going, must forgive, must explain. But you don't have to do anything that makes you lose yourself. In every relationship, you teach others how to treat you, not with words, but with how you respond to their behavior. If someone is consistently late and you don't address it, they learn you don't demand respect for your time. If someone says hurtful words and you continue interacting as if nothing happened, they learn they can offend you without consequences. If someone repeatedly crosses your personal boundaries and you keep explaining to maintain the relationship, they learn you prioritize their presence over your dignity. Every behavior you tolerate is a silent agreement that says, "Keep going, I won't do anything." Sadly, many grew up in environments where endurance was seen as love, where tolerance was considered noble. They learned to stay silent for peace, to avoid reacting to prevent conflict, to step back thinking that being better would change others. But the truth is, if you don't teach others what's unacceptable, they won't naturally know it. And most people will do what's easy for them, not what's right for you. Pause and ask, what have I taught others about how to treat me? Have I let them cross my boundaries without standing up? Have I stayed silent while my heart was full of hurt? Am I hiding everything with kindness, only to become a dumping ground for others' anger? If the answer is yes, it's time to return to yourself, not to blame, but to reclaim your power to decide. Self-respect doesn't come from telling others what you deserve, but from being willing to walk away when you don't receive it. You don't need to yell, demand, or prove anything. You just need to change how you respond. You don't need to convince someone to treat you kindly. You just need to stop staying when they don't. That's how you teach others to respect you, through actions, not words. One of the hardest lessons of growth is realizing love alone isn't enough. You may love someone, but if they keep hurting you, if they don't change despite your chances, staying only teaches them they can repeat that behavior. You're teaching them that loving you doesn't require responsibility, that they can hurt you and still have you. When that happens long enough, you're no longer loving, you're self-destructing. You deserve healthy relationships where you're heard, respected, and don't have to fight to exist. But you won't get that if you keep staying in spaces where your worth is dimmed. Good things can't come when you hold on to the bad, and no one can save you if you don't dare say enough. Don't think you can change someone with love. Love is never enough if they lack the awareness to change. You can love them to the end, but if they don't respect you, if they're not willing to listen and grow, your presence in their life will only exhaust you. Remember, love can't exist without fairness and respect, and fairness starts with how you set boundaries. Be bold and say, I no longer accept what makes me small. I won't keep relationships that make me doubt my worth. I won't explain my existence to those too blind to see my heart. And if I must be alone to protect my dignity, I'll choose solitude and freedom over connection and pain. That's how you turn silence into your loudest voice. That's how you gain respect without shouting. That's when you stop teaching with words and start teaching with actions. Because ultimately, people only do to you what you allow. You can stop it with one choice, one action, one walk away without looking back. If this feels true to you, leave a comment below. I'm taking back control of my life. Like this video if it's awakening the strength within you. Don't forget to share it with someone who needs to wake up. And subscribe to catch the next part, where we'll dive into a profoundly deep truth. Number 4, empaths are magnets until they learn boundaries. There's a painful but undeniable truth. Those with deep compassion often end up in the most toxic relationships. Empaths don't just sympathize, they try to heal others, even at the cost of themselves. That's the tragedy of those with an empath's nature. They aren't born to be hurt but often suffer the most. Not because they're weak, but because they love too deeply, understand too broadly, and endure too long. An empath can sense the slightest discomfort in a room. They feel others' pain as if it were their own, wanting to help, fix, and bring light to souls lost in darkness. But the problem is, not everyone wants help. Not everyone deserves that kindness. And most importantly, not everyone will value what an empath gives. When an empath hasn't learned to set boundaries, they become a magnet for manipulators. Because manipulators love those who can't say no. They'll exploit your compassion, making you feel responsible for their emotions, blaming you when things don't go their way, and using your kindness to trap you in a toxic cycle. The more you try to fix them, the more they control you. The more you try to make them happy, the more they demand. And when you start to tire, they'll guilt you into thinking you've changed or you don't love them anymore. This is why boundaries aren't coldness. They're the highest act of self-love. Empaths often confuse kindness with sacrifice. They think if someone's hurting, they should stay to heal them. They believe refusing is selfish. But the reality is, no one has the right to demand you forget yourself just to keep them around. You don't need to abandon your worth, emotional limits, or erase yourself to make others happy. That's not love, it's self-destruction. The harsh truth is, the more you give without boundaries, the more you're exploited. Because not everyone in this world knows how to value goodness. Some only take, never give. Some only come when they need you to fill their voids, then leave when you're drained. Some don't love you. They love the feeling of being loved by you. Boundaries are what separate compassion from emotional dependency. Without boundaries, you'll drown in others' emotions, unable to tell if they're yours. You feel guilty when they're sad. You feel responsible when they're angry. You constantly adjust to please them, even if it means losing yourself. But when you set boundaries, everything changes. You realize you're not obligated to heal everyone. You see that saying no isn't harm, it's protection. You understand that kindness doesn't mean letting others trample you. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you love from a place of maturity. You can listen to someone cry without letting their tears pull you into dependency. You can empathize with their pain without taking it on. You can walk away from someone who's bad for you without guilt. Because you know you deserve safety, respect, and peace. And if someone can't offer that, you have the right to choose to leave. When an empath starts setting boundaries, they're no longer a victim. They stop saying yes when they mean no. Stop smiling when their heart is breaking. Stop keeping relationships just to avoid hurting others. They become masters of their emotions, protectors of their energy, and lovers of themselves enough to reject toxicity. The miracle is, When you set clear boundaries, those who don't belong will leave. They can't manipulate you anymore. And that creates space for truly mature people to enter. Those who respect you, love you for who you are, not what they can take from you. If you're an empath feeling exhausted, exploited, or lost in relationships, it's time to pause and look at yourself. Ask, am I loving myself enough? Am I saying yes when my heart screams no? Am I living to please others while hurting myself? If the answer is yes, remember, you have the right to change. You have the right to learn boundaries step by step. Every no you say heals you. Every time you walk away from an unhealthy relationship, you honor your compassion rightly. Empaths aren't born to be trapped in a cycle of unreciprocated giving. They're born to spread light. But that light needs protection, and boundaries are the circle of light that lets them shine without being consumed by those who live in darkness. Remember, the person with the biggest heart isn't the one who gives the most, but the one who knows when to stop, who knows when to keep themselves. If this feels true to you, leave a comment below. I'm learning to set boundaries. Like this video if you've ever felt you gave too much without reciprocation. Share it with the empaths in your life so they know they're not alone. And don't forget to subscribe for the next part. Number 5. The fear of being alone is expensive. Loneliness can be humanity's deepest fear. It makes you feel empty, as if you don't exist without others' validation. But the real danger isn't loneliness. It's how you react to that fear. The fear of being left behind, forgotten, or seen as not enough makes many trade their self-worth for any connection, no matter how toxic. They'd rather hold on to someone who hurts them than face the feeling of abandonment. They'd rather pretend to be happy in a cold relationship than sit alone with their thoughts echo. But the price for this is your self-respect, your peace, and your growth. Be honest. How many times have you clung to someone because you feared if they left, you'd have no one? How many times have you swallowed your anger, faked being okay, or forgiven the unforgivable just because you feared the next one might be worse? How many times has the fear of loneliness driven your decisions instead of your self-worth? If these questions hit you, you may have paid or are paying a high price for not daring to be alone. The fear of loneliness is an emotional addiction. It makes you cling to any relationship that offers attention, even if it's negative. It makes you ignore the truth in your heart. I'm not respected. I'm being hurt. I'm not myself anymore. Instead, you convince yourself things will be okay, that they'll change, that you should be grateful someone's there. But the truth is, you're not lonely because no one's around. You're lonely because you're not with yourself. True loneliness isn't when you have no one to talk to. It's when you feel lost even with someone by your side. It's when you sit across from someone but feel unheard, unseen, unconnected. It's when you share your sadness but are dismissed. When you show your true emotions but are brushed off. That's a loneliness more painful than any empty room. So if you're in a relationship just to fill the fear of loneliness, you've traded real peace for an illusion of safety. And that's a costly price. We're taught that love heals everything. But no one tells us that love without self-respect becomes dependency. And dependency is what toxic people seek. They don't need you to love them. They need you to need them. Because once you need them to avoid loneliness, you'll tolerate anything to keep them. You'll accept disrespect, manipulation, even insults, just to not be left alone. But you must understand, the fear of loneliness makes you more controllable than anything else. The truly strong are those who can sit alone in silence without feeling empty. They don't use relationships as crutches for their emotions, but as gifts added to an already full life. They don't stay with someone out of fear no one else will choose them. They know their worth and only choose those who deserve them. If you haven't learned to be alone, you're not ready to be with anyone. Because if you're not whole, you'll only pull others in to fill your voids. And those voids can only be filled by you. The cycle of attracting toxic people stops when you learn to stop fearing solitude. When you know you're okay even if no one calls, texts, or holds your hand at night. When you understand your worth isn't in who chooses you, but in who you choose to let into your world. When you bravely stand, look in the mirror and say, I deserve better, and I won't trade my peace just to avoid being left behind. Practicing being alone doesn't mean isolating yourself. It's an act of connecting deeply with yourself. Use that time to explore passions, care for your body, learn something new, heal old wounds, and build a life you're proud of. A fulfilled person won't be drawn to those who only take. A person who understands healthy solitude won't be a victim to those who exploit fear. When you're happy alone, you'll never accept a relationship that makes you unhappy. If you're in a relationship just to avoid loneliness, pause and ask, can I be happy if this person leaves? If the answer is no, that's not love, it's dependency. And dependency always comes with pain. You have the right to stop. You have the right to choose again. You have the right to choose yourself. And when you choose yourself, you no longer need anyone's validation. You become stronger than ever, not because you don't need anyone, but because you're not afraid of losing them. If this resonates with your experience, leave a comment. I'm learning to choose myself. Don't forget to support this video and share it with those stuck in relationships just to avoid loneliness. And if you want to continue this healing journey with me, subscribe to the channel for the next part. Number 6, toxicity feeds on repetition. You don't need dozens of bad relationships to know you're stuck in a loop. Once you see yourself repeating painful connections, situations that leave you disoriented, disrespected, and without peace, it's time to stop. It's not someone hurting you again. It's you unconsciously allowing an old pattern to repeat. Toxicity doesn't arise naturally. It grows, spreads, and thrives when you let it repeat without conscious intervention. It's hard to accept that we, however unintentionally, enable the persistence of harm. But look closely. Have you forgiven things you shouldn't have, not just once, but multiple times? Have you ignored glaring red flags because you believed everyone has good in them? Have you told yourself this time will be different, even as everything follows the same painful path? If the answer is yes, you're feeding the very loop that keeps your life adrift between hurt and false hope. The truth is, toxic people don't need to try hard to manipulate you when you're still acting on old habits. They just need to press the familiar emotional buttons, guilt, sacrifice, the need to be loved, and you'll react the same as before. This doesn't make you weak, it just shows you haven't learned to respond differently. And where there's no change, there's repetition. In a toxic environment, repetition is the perfect breeding ground for harm. One of the hardest truths to swallow is, if you don't learn the lesson from a relationship, you'll have to learn it again in a different form. It might be a different person, a different situation, but the core is the same. You'll still feel dismissed, controlled, torn between staying and leaving. The only difference is their name. The essence remains. That's why you feel like, I always meet the same kind of people. It's not because life is unfair. It's because you haven't stopped to rewrite the script. Toxicity doesn't need to be loud, controlling, or violent to thrive. It just needs permission to repeat. When you react with old instincts, silence, endurance, over-sacrifice, you're telling them, keep going, I'm still here. When you return to someone who hurt you without demanding real change, you're saying, I'll accept this again. And when you don't set new boundaries after a negative experience, you're opening the door for the same pain to enter, perhaps deeper, more subtle, and more costly. So how do you break this loop? First, you must see it. Awareness is the first step to any change. Write down the common threads in the relationships that hurt you. It might be the feeling you always have to try harder than them, always worry you're doing something wrong, or that they only stay when you're perfect. When you see these patterns, you can't fool yourself into thinking, this time will be different if you keep acting the same. Next, change your response. Stop reacting on instinct and start responding with intention. If you usually stay silent to avoid conflict, speak up clearly this time. If you've forgiven too quickly to avoid loss, set conditions, change or part ways. If you've feared being disliked for setting boundaries, accept that those who don't respect your boundaries don't belong in your life. Each time you respond differently, you're breaking the toxic code in your mind that's kept you trapped. Most importantly, choose differently. not just in one relationship, but in how you see yourself. If you once believed you had to sacrifice to be loved, learn to believe your presence is already valuable. If you thought loneliness was scarier than pain, remember how many times you lost yourself just to avoid being alone. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary to stop toxicity from regenerating in your life. Remember, you can't expect others to change if you don't. You can't expect the loop to end if you live in the same old structure, and you can't heal if you keep returning to what hurt you just because it's familiar. Familiarity isn't safety. It's just repetition of what your mind thinks it can control. But the price of that familiarity is your inner freedom, peace, self-respect, and gradually you. If you feel stuck in a loop, don't just watch this video. Act. Comment below, "I choose to break the loop." That's your first commitment to yourself. Like this video if you've repeated a toxic relationship you should have left sooner. And don't forget to share it with those struggling in a cycle of harm they can't yet name. Most importantly, subscribe to continue this journey of healing and changing patterns. Number 7, what you allow, you repeat. There's a truth that, if you truly understand, will change how you live, love, and connect. What you allow will continue. Every behavior you accept without setting boundaries, every insult you overlook without a clear response, every time you stay silent instead of defending yourself, you're teaching others how to treat you. And if nothing changes from you, there's no reason for them to change. People learn through habits and reactions. Toxic people don't just exist because of their flawed character. They thrive because they've met those who never say enough. The more you let someone hurt you without consequences, the more you reinforce their belief that they can. You don't need to shout or get angry. Just doing nothing is already silent permission. And once that silence becomes the default, toxic behavior doesn't just continue, it escalates. We often think we can change others with kindness, forgiveness, patience. But none of those create boundaries. And without boundaries, there's no respect. That's the rule. When you don't set limits on unacceptable behavior, you're not just allowing it to happen again, you're inviting it to happen more often. Because they know you won't leave, won't resist, won't demand anything different than enduring. The danger is, this permission is often unconscious. You don't sit down and say, "I allow you to hurt me." But you do it through actions. You keep replying to their messages after being insulted. You keep sacrificing your time to please someone who doesn't value you. You keep forgiving without demanding real change. And then you wonder why things don't change. Because you haven't changed. Imagine every time you accept an insult without reacting, you're laying a brick. Do it enough, and you're building a path, not to peace, but to repetition. And that path doesn't just lead others to you with disrespect. It makes you diminish yourself. Because when you allow something long enough, you start believing you deserve it. That's why setting boundaries isn't confrontation. It's love. When you say no to toxic behavior, you're not just protecting yourself. You're sending a clear message. I deserve better. And that message has the power to change everything. It changes how others see you. It changes how you see yourself. And most importantly, it changes what you'll repeat in the future. Change doesn't come from others waking up. It comes from you raising your standards. Look at your life and ask, is there something I'm allowing that I know is wrong, but I fear losing someone if I stop? Is someone repeatedly crossing my boundaries because I've never dared to set them clearly? And most importantly, if I keep allowing this, how many more times will I have to endure it? A miracle happens when you start revoking permission. Those who don't belong will leave on their own. They no longer find a favorable environment for manipulation or disrespect. You don't need to chase anyone away, you just need to stop inviting them. Conversely, those who value your worth and boundaries will start appearing because you've upgraded the energy you emit. You're no longer someone easily exploited. You're someone who knows what they deserve and won't accept less. This change isn't always easy. When you start saying no to what's familiar, you'll feel guilt, doubt, even loneliness. But that's part of the transformation. You're leaving your comfort zone to enter your deserving zone. And anyone who's been on this journey will tell you, it's worth it. You're worth it. If you're caught in a cycle of repetition, If you feel you keep falling into toxic connections or being treated unfairly, stop and reflect. What am I allowing? Where have I not spoken up? Where have I not set boundaries? And are you ready to change that today? Start with the smallest action. Comment below this video, "I'm revoking permission." That's a powerful declaration that you've recognized your strength. If this content awakens something in you, like it to spread this message to those stuck in a loop. And if you know someone who needs this reminder, share the video with them. Most importantly, subscribe to continue this journey of breaking patterns and rebuilding your worth from within. Number 8, healing changes your vibration. When you begin your healing journey, something happens that you might not immediately notice. You don't just feel better, you become a different version of yourself. And that version emits a different frequency. This isn't flowery or spiritual fluff, it's a reality. The energy you carry changes when you heal, and the frequency you emit determines exactly what kind of people and experiences enter your life. That's why healing isn't just about feeling better. It's about breaking free from the toxic loop for good. When you're wounded, you emit a signal of needing to be saved. You don't need to say it out loud. It shows in your eyes, your body language, your late-night replies, your silence when disrespected, your continued forgiveness of the undeserving. That's the frequency of unhealed wounds. And those wounds attract people who control, manipulate, or exploit that vulnerability to boost their ego. You don't consciously choose this. But energy doesn't lie. Healing begins when you face the truth. A part of you has accepted disrespect as normal, that you believed you had to trade peace for love, that you didn't dare be alone because you feared facing yourself. And when you start working on those wounds through writing, meditation, therapy, setting boundaries, you're not just fixing the past, you're changing the entire frequency you operate on. The people who once hurt you no longer attract you. You no longer crave chaotic relationships as part of your life. You become sharper at spotting toxic signs. And the strangest thing happens. You're no longer approached by them, not because they disappear, but because they no longer see you the way they once did. Your frequency is too clear, too solid, too self-respecting to be manipulated. That's the true power of healing. Healing doesn't make you too strong to need anyone. It makes you clear enough to choose who deserves to enter your world. It makes you less reactive, but more intentional. You no longer yell to be heard, you walk away in silence. You no longer try to convince others to understand you. You simply live your truth and let the world filter out those who belong. You may have heard, you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. If you're operating on a frequency of pain, neediness, or hesitation, you'll attract those who can exploit that. But when you heal and emit a frequency of self-respect, clarity, and peace, those who don't match will fall away. And that might leave you lonely for a while. But that's the quiet before you build connections from a new foundation. Once you realize your frequency is a silent invitation to the universe, you'll take more responsibility for what you emit. You'll stop lingering in negative thoughts. You'll see that complaining or blaming isn't release. It's keeping you in the old vibration. And if you want to change who enters your life, you must first change the voice within you. Healing doesn't mean no more pain. It means you're no longer controlled by it. You see it, acknowledge it, embrace it, and let it go. And each time you do, you become lighter, brighter, stronger. Toxic people sense this shift. They can't pull you into their old games. They can't guilt you for having boundaries. They can't scare you when you choose temporary solitude over lasting pain. Healing is a personal journey, but its effects ripple out to your environment. Your family starts speaking to you differently. Those you feared losing either respect you more or disappear entirely. And in their place, you attract people like you. Those who don't need you to explain why you deserve respect. Who know what a healthy connection looks like without manipulation. You don't need grand gestures to heal. Simple actions like saying no when you want to, resting when you need to, or writing down your emotions instead of avoiding them are steps in the right direction. Remember, you can't fake healing. Energy never lies, and if you truly want your life to change at its core, you must be willing to dive into yourself and do the work, however hard, slow, or tear-filled. but each small step raises your frequency day by day. If this resonates with your journey, leave a comment. I'm raising my frequency. This isn't just an affirmation, it's a commitment to yourself. Like this video to help spread it to those seeking healing. Share it with loved ones or friends who need this. And if you want to continue raising your frequency with messages like these, subscribe to the channel. Healing isn't easy, but you don't have to walk it alone. Number 9, stop explaining, start elevating. One of the most exhausting things you've done in a toxic relationship is trying to explain yourself. Explaining why you're sad, why you need boundaries, why you feel disrespected, why you need them to change. And after countless attempts, you realize you're not explaining to be understood. You're begging to be treated right. And that never works. Because those who want to understand you don't need explanations. And those who don't want to will never hear you, no matter how much you say. That's why you need to stop explaining and start elevating yourself. Explaining isn't wrong. In healthy relationships, clear communication is necessary. But when you have to repeatedly explain your pain to someone who hears but doesn't act, you're no longer communicating. You're diminishing yourself. Every time you try to prove your worth, you're giving them the power to decide if you're worthy. And in that game, you always lose. Those who made you feel guilty for setting boundaries, who manipulated you with silence, who twisted the story to make you apologize for your emotions, they don't need your explanations. They need your silence to keep manipulating. And the painful truth is, every time you try to convince them to see the truth, you're giving them more chances to deny and distort it. You're giving them more data to use against you. This is the cycle you need to step out of. Elevating yourself means stopping the search for validation from those who don't deserve it. You don't need to make anyone understand why you deserve respect. You simply live by your values and let your presence speak. You no longer beg for understanding. You choose peace over winning. You choose to walk away over arguing. You choose growth over being stuck in endless debates. There's immense freedom in realizing you don't need anyone's agreement to move forward. You don't need anyone's approval for your healing to matter. You don't need anyone's apology to let go. When you truly accept this, you become unshakable. You no longer waste time explaining your truth to those living in their delusions. Stopping explaining doesn't mean becoming cold or arrogant. It means you're clear enough to know where to sow seeds and where there's only barren ground. You stop wasting energy. Instead, you use it to learn, grow, strengthen your inner resolve. You use it to care for yourself, connect with those who share your values, build a life that doesn't depend on external approval. When you stop explaining, you attract people who don't need you to prove anything. They sense your clarity. They respect your boundaries not because you demand it, but because you embody it. They don't make you lecture them during conflicts because they have the awareness to reflect on themselves. And you no longer feel the need to say too much. A look, a short sentence, a timely silence. It's enough to convey everything. Elevating yourself isn't climbing high to escape others. It's digging deep within to not be pulled down. When you heal, you don't need to fight to prove you're right. You simply leave the battlefield. You stand in a quieter, stronger place, where accusations no longer touch you, where manipulators no longer understand you, because you don't follow their old script. It all starts with the decision to stop explaining. Stop sending long messages explaining why you're silent. Stop justifying why you need time for yourself. Stop writing out your emotions for someone who doesn't care about them. Let your inner change be your strongest message. Let the peace you maintain be your clearest answer. When you replace the need to be understood with the need to be free, you'll no longer be caught in the cycle of explaining and seeking permission. You'll start acting, not to prove, but to live true to yourself. And that action is the loudest declaration. You're no longer at the frequency of manipulation. You've risen above it, not with words, but with your presence. If this feels true to your journey, leave a comment. I'm elevating myself. Like this video if you see value in this message, and share it with someone stuck trying to explain themselves in toxic relationships. Don't forget to subscribe for the next parts of this healing and rising journey. Remember, your silence is power. Your clarity is your shield. And stopping explaining isn't giving up, it's rebirth. You don't need to be perfect to deserve peace. You just need to be awake enough to realize you no longer have to live as the explainer, the savior, or the sufferer. You're not here to prove your worth to the blind. You're here to live authentically, to grow, to be free. And that starts when you dare to end the cycle of meaningless explanations. Everything you've tried to explain, your pain, your boundaries, your reasons for stepping back, doesn't need anyone's approval. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your healing journey. You just need to walk forward, head high, in silence, with the certainty in your heart that no one can shake you if you stop trying to be understood by them. And if you're on this path, the path of choosing peace over being right, boundaries over pleasing, growth over stagnation, I want you to know, you're not alone. There's a community of people doing the same, learning to love themselves enough to stop giving power to those who don't deserve it. They're reading these words as you are, feeling these moments as you are. They're awakening. If this video touched you, leave a comment. Whether it's an emotion you're facing or a decision you're preparing to make, I'm here to listen. This is a space of honesty, no judgment, just connection. And if you want to continue this journey with me, a journey of awakening, inner freedom, and strength from within, subscribe to the channel. Each video I share is a reminder. You always have the right to return to yourself, to find peace, and to rise from any pain. Share this video with someone who needs a wake-up call. Who knows, one timely word might change an entire life.